Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul and I'm an alcoholic. And it's only by the grace of God and Alcoholics Anonymous that I didn't have to drink any booze today. I'm eternally grateful. It's good to be here and it's good to be sober. And I want to thank you for giving us a wonderful time down here, Andy and everybody. We've had a real treat from the moment we got here. It's been just absolutely incredible. And as you probably realised, I'm not originally from this country, or it's about 25 years now since I left my native Cuba, and but we're running 2 CDs right now. We have an English-speaking version, and for people that having trouble understanding what I'm saying. But it's good to be here and it's good to be sober. And I live in New York, and my home group is the High Noon group in Long Beach, New York. Yes, there is another Long Beach, and it's on the East Coast. And I love the group. It's called High Noon. We have 2 meetings a week. One is on Thursday night at 7:15 at night, and the other one is Saturday morning at 10 a.m., I said, now this is the group I want to be in, or we've sort of carved out a spot for ourselves at the shallow end of the gene pool, and I fit right in, and it's good to be here and it's good to be sober. And I said my wife Susan's with me here tonight, and she knows how I feel about her today since I've come to Alcoholics Anonymous. Before I came to AA, I was like the Irishman. He loved his wife so much he almost told her, you know what I'm saying? But things are different. Things are a little different today since I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. And my wife's one of those fascinating people. She's a non-alcoholic, she's bodily and mentally different from our fellows, Our hats are off to you, and on a personal note, I'm actually fascinated by non-alcoholics. If ever I'm in a place where there's drinking being done, I sit back and I watch them, because I never get tired of watching normal drinkers drinking normally, and my wife falls into that category. I'll tell you a little story that's indicative of that. We were at a social event one night, and I said to my wife, would you like a drink? She says, yeah, I'll have a glass of red wine. So I push up to the bar and I get a glass of red wine for my wife, and I get a bottle of water for myself. And I come back, and she's mingling with her friends. I'm mingling with a few of my friends. About 5 minutes later, she comes back to me and she says, can you get me another drink? I said, what happened to the drink I just got you? She says, well, I set it down, and I don't know where I set it. And I'm an alcoholic. I'm saying, you set it down, and you don't know where you set it? You mean you lost it? Is that what you're telling me? You lost your drink? See, as an alcoholic, I'm flabbergasted by this. I'm saying to myself, now I've lost my car, That I can understand, I know it's in this town somewhere. Let me just, if I can get the zip code right, and I've lost my job, How dare you ask me where I am every Monday morning, Take this job and shove it, But I'm almost on a soapbox now and saying to my wife, I have never, ever, ever lost a drink, and she said, that's because you were holding on like grim death, which, if I remember rightly, wasn't too far away in your case, and anyway, but, well, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how it was, what happened, and how it is today, and hopefully by about 9:30, 9:45, I should be able to wrap it all up, and I just seen the blood drain on the newcomer's face back there, Is that what they mean by willing to go to any lengths, And you think I'm joking. I said to my sponsor recently, I said, I think I need to go to Al-Anon. He says, no, you don't need to go to Al-Anon. There's another fellowship for you. It's called On and On, for people to just go on and on and on. I'm tired listening to you, but as I said, I used to get a lot of mental gymnastics. Why did I become an alcoholic? Where did I become an alcoholic? When did I become an alcoholic? You know, the old alcoholic conundrum, you know, what came first, the chicken or the keg, you know? And there's a few guys went out trying to figure that one out, you know? And, you know, I believe that alcoholism comes in people and alcohol comes in bottles. I had a lot of the traits of this disease long before a drink ever passed my lips. As a kid growing up in Northern Ireland outside of Belfast, I was irritable, discontent. I had that stone in the shoe feeling. When I was over there, I wanted to be over here. When I was upstairs, I wanted to be downstairs. If you asked me what was wrong, I couldn't have told you. But something's not just right. Real alky stuff, just below the radar, other side of the horizon. Just, you know, my life was characterized by a lot of, okay, this is it. This is definitely it now. No, that's not it either, you know. Coming to America, oh, this is definitely it. No, this is not either. It was when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, and so I don't know if I was a symptom looking for disease, but I took the booze like a duck to water. It was like lighting a firecracker stand back, you know, and I mean, my family, really, I was between the crosshairs when I think about it. There was like mental illness. We're like Eugene O'Neill's Long Day's Journey into Night. It was like mental illness on one side of the family and alcoholism on the other side of the family, you know. And I'm not going to go into the whole ins and outs of it, but let me just tell you this. When I took my first breath, I blew a .28, you know. So I get you some idea where I was coming from, you know. And but I realized why I drank. I drank because of a lack of. Dr. Bob said alcoholism is a form of spiritual thirst. We're searchers. I was looking for something. You know, for whatever reason I don't know and God's not telling me, I end up with a hole in my soul. And I try to fill it with booze and people and places and things. And every victory that I had before I came to AA and put the 12 steps in my life was purely symbolic. The real deal is in here in Alcoholics Anonymous. But I didn't know that. I was drinking because of a lack of. You know, I took that first drink. It was like my life went from black and white to colour. The jokes were funnier, the street lights were brighter. You know, most people drink because what alcohol does to them. Alcoholics drink because what alcohol does for them. Alcohol does something for us that it doesn't do for the normal or heavy drinker. Bill Wilson was talking about when he was shipping out to World War I and he was standing at a party and he was about 6'3". He could have used 20 or 30 pounds. He felt awkward. He felt inept. He felt socially deficient. And he felt like he was being brought over and introduced to all these people. He just felt more and more awkward. And someone put a drink in his hand. And he said he took that one drink and it felt like people were being introduced to him rather than him being introduced to them. One drink. One drink changes me. Booze is a game changer in my life. One drink can change me completely. And I can understand what he was talking about. That one drink. And I pursued that, as it says in the book, not up to, into the gates of death and insanity. If you had told me where I was going to end up 15 years later after I took that first drink, I'd have said, no way. You must be thinking of somebody else. But if you be alcoholic and you suffer from alcoholism, physical, mental, and spiritual, and in my case, wrapped in a body full of sick emotions, this disease, of all terminal diseases, I believe this is the most terminal. If I hadn't stopped drinking, drinking's going to stop me. And I'll take everything. I'll take your job, your car, your wife, the shirt off your back. But what it really wants is me 6 feet under. In the Merchant of Venice, Shylock just wanted 1 pound of flesh, not this disease. It's a rapacious creditor. It'll give you a little, but when it comes time to pay the freight, watch out. It'll take everything. You know, but you couldn't have told me that as a kid starting out. Booze was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. Before I took drink, I felt this small and you looked that tall. I take one drink, you look that small and I feel that tall. I don't care what the consequences are. When booze does that for you, you're coming back for more. You know, and I'm not going to go into the whole ins and outs of it. I've experienced every form of drinking. Before I was a sort of a kid. If you ever see kids drinking in a neighborhood and there's one kid that's far drunker than everybody else, that was me. Booze immediately changed my life. I was a fanatical soccer player. I was like that, you know, you see that kid playing basketball and he's shooting hoops in the rain? That was me with a soccer ball, morning, noon and night. I took one drink. I don't think I kicked a soccer ball 6 times after that. Everything went on the back burner. Booze became my primary purpose, you know. And before I was out of my teen, I had my stomach pumped out as a kid. My parents didn't know what to do with me. And it got progressively worse. But the good news is, sobriety is progressive too. And if you're new here tonight, as far down as you go with drink, it's been my experience. You can come back up and then summon Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not going to stand up here like some snake oil salesman. There's things you lost through drinking that aren't coming back. But because of the program of AA, I can live with the consequences of my drinking. Who out of us could live with the guilt and the shame and remorse if it wasn't for drinking? I'm not pathological. I haven't been an alcoholic yet that didn't know right from wrong. That's killing me. I knew I should have been there for you. I knew my name wasn't worth the paper it was written on. But still I drank. I wanted to be there for you. But if a drink got between me and you, you're always coming in second best, whether I like it or not. And if you're new here tonight, I want to welcome you. I want to welcome you to the greatest event in my life. This thing I call, we come and know to love as Alcoholics Anonymous. And maybe you're sitting out there tonight and you're saying, Paul, can you see my face? I ain't laughing. I haven't laughed in a while. I don't ever know if I'll ever laugh again. Well, let me tell you something. You've heard that analogy. You go 10 miles into the forest, you got to come 10 miles out. I like to look at it a little differently here. I don't care how deep and how dark and how painful that forest you're in right now is. As far as I'm concerned, Alcoholics Anonymous tells me you're just 12 steps away from a new life. That's all. Just 12 steps away from a brand new life. You hear people saying in AA, oh, I came to AA and I got my life back. I don't want my life back. It sucked. If you want to go right ahead, I had it for 30 years. I could do nothing with it, you know. Are there people in my life that were there when I was drinking? Absolutely, but things are different today. My world is built on concrete. Before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, where were we? We were lost out there in a sea of booze. And there wasn't any coordinate to his pain and misery. And there wasn't a glacial drift either. It was a fast clip to nothingness and nowhere. And every once in a while would end up on dry land, but everything was built on sand. You know how we are. We get things together, but everything's built on sand. And we always take the first drink. We're washed back out to sea with more debris than the last time. Because of Alcoholics Anonymous, my world is built on concrete today. And the world out there, which can, like the story I used to read to my little daughter, the world out there can huff and it can puff. But if I stay close to AA, I don't have to drink no matter what. And I was an alcoholic who drank no matter what. And I feel so blessed if you're new here tonight that we found this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. Because before Alcoholics Anonymous, what was there? There was jails, institutions, and death. And it's been my experience, once you've been to the first few times, the third one looks like a good option. But since 1935, because of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob, there's a fourth option on the table. And it's a pretty good one. And it's called sobriety, courtesy of Alcoholics Anonymous, where hopeless drunkards like us can come in, not drink one day at a time, get something between us and the first drink, and live the life that God always wanted to have before booze took us down another road. And I feel blessed to be born in the century that had AA, because since man, as it says in one of our books, since man first crushed grapes, there's been people like us, couldn't fit in, took drink, couldn't fit in, ran at life with drink, ran away from life with drink. We were society's first outcasts. I had my face up at the window of humanity looking in, wondering how did they do it. I feel blessed I was born at a time I came into AA, the steps were here, the traditions were here, the fellowship was here, it was all here for me. They talk about the home, that's why it was so amazing to see this last night, all the home groups. The home group is the heartbeat of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was thinking of the exponential effect, how many people have been helped by these groups over the years. Or we used to adversely affect 5 or 6 people. Now we have a positive effect on 5 or 6 people because we don't drink and we try to go along spiritual lines and we try to do the right thing for the right reason. But even with all, there's more meetings in the world than there's ever been before. There's more people sober than any time in the world history. There's more literature. There's more social acceptance. But I guarantee you, if I leave this room right now and I walk over that neighbourhood, I wouldn't have to knock on too many doors and I'll find somebody drinking themselves to death right now. Totally oblivious of what's going on in here. And what's my job as an alcoholic? To keep that door open for the still sick and suffering alcoholic, whether he be inside or outside this room. As far as I'm concerned, is my sobriety important? Yes, but right after me comes the newcomer. As far as I'm concerned, without the newcomer, it's just a room full of noise. It makes no sense to me. It says in our book we're survivors from the sinking ship. And what do? Do we row off into the sunset, patting each other in the back? No. We circle, looking for more survivors and help them into the boat. And hopefully they'll take an oar and start to row. And we have their traditions in case they have a hatchet in their hand and they want to chop a hole in the boat and take us all down. And if you're new here tonight, you maybe haven't heard this in a while, we need you. We want you. Bill Wilson lay in Towns Hospital and he had a vision of a chain of drunks around the world. Not around New York or the Northeast, a whole paradigm shift. A chain of drunks. And that's what I ask in my 10th step. How strong is my link in the chain? Is it strong enough for the people who went ahead of me and strong enough for the people coming behind me? So if someone comes up to me and says, Paul, can I go to that place that you just talk about in the promises? Can I go there? Yes, take my hand and walk this journey with us. You know? What a concept. One alcoholic helping another. When Dr. Bob gave that talk in 1950, and he probably said more in 3 minutes than I'll say here the whole night, he says, if you take this all down and you just distill it, excuse the pun, what do you get? You get one alcoholic helping another alcoholic. The turning points in all our lives. When a man came to my house and told me, Paul, you don't have to live this way anymore. There's another way. And he brought me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I believe AA is like a backwater pond. It needs fresh water. If it doesn't get fresh water, it becomes stagnant. And nothing grows in stagnant water. I die, you die, we all die. What's the point? So if you're new here tonight, we need you, we want you, and we're glad you're here. You know, and as I said there, I'm back in Northern Ireland, totally oblivious to what's going on. And I'm drinking the bit out. And I'm an alcoholic. I'm always looking for an outside fix for what's really an inside job. I grew up in Northern Ireland. I'm a working class Catholic from the wrong side of the tracks. At the height of the troubles over there, and a big chip on my shoulder. In fact, a guy in AA told me one time when I first got here, he says, you know something, Paul? He said, you're a well-balanced guy. I think to myself, finally, somebody that knows what they're talking about around here, you know? He says, yes, you got a chip on both shoulders, you know? I hated everything, I hated everybody, but I despised myself the most, the man in the glass. But I don't want to change me. I don't want to look in. I want to look out. I'm a finger pointer. I'm into the blame game. I trafficked in this story of mine, this hard luck story, and got a lot of traction in it. So I'm blaming Northern Ireland. I can't get a break. I can't get ahead. I'm living in a two-class society as a working class Catholic. I got to get out of here. So I come home and I say to my father, I come home half drunk and I say to my father, I said, sit down. I got something to tell you. He says, what is it? I said, I'm going to America, and don't try and talk me out of it. He says, talk you out of it, I'll help you pack when you're leaving. On you go, Columbus. Let me give you some fatherly advice. Turn left at Greenland, you know. So I hopped on the only plane to get on, the only airline to fly if you're an alcoholic, Aer Lingus, Ireland's national airline. It's a drinker's dream. The plane's still going down the runway, and already the cabin crew's getting the drinks card out at the back of the airplane. The plane's at like a 45-degree angle, and the cabin crew are like Sherpas, you know, pushing it up to the front. And everybody's ringing their bell looking booze. Bing, 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 bing. You think you're in a pinball machine rather than an airplane, you know? And like driftwood, I washed up in a place in New York called Rockaway Beach. I don't know if you know Rockaway Beach. There's two types of people in Rockaway Beach. Those that are in AA and those that should be in AA. No, alcoholics, we got that built-in GPS system. You know what I mean? You could like blindfold me and put me in a sack. I'm going to find a neighborhood that drinks as much, if not more, than the one I just left. And let me just tell you about this place, Rockaway Beach. It's an Irish-American neighborhood. Even before that, what is it with beach towns? Every beach town you go to, you'll see one of us stumbling around in the sand. And you can always tell the alcoholic, they're like sunburnt on one half of their body, you know? And they're like, you go, there goes an alcoholic, you know? So this place, it's a big Irish-American neighborhood. And the old-timers, you know, the old people that live there, they go, oh, this is Rockaway Beach. This is the Irish Riviera. What it should have been called was Cirrhosis by the Sea. I mean, they had more drunks than that. And then to make matters worse, I got a job as a bartender. Now, I'm using the word bar here in the loosest possible. You know when you're going out for the evening and you see that one bar in your neighborhood and you say to yourself, I wouldn't be caught dead in that place. And then like 2 o'clock in the morning you're saying, how bad could it really be, you know? Well, that was the bar I worked in. This bar had it all. Alcoholics, drug addicts, degenerate gamblers. And that was just the staff. That wasn't even the customers, you know? I mean, a rough bar. It wasn't uncommon to see somebody sitting at the bar with like a black eye or fresh stitches from in a street fight. And that was just the women. The men looked a lot worse than that, you know? And let me give you a mental picture and then I'll move on. If you want to see a full set of teeth in this bar, you needed 32 customers, you know?
To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
Every once in a while, like a glamour girl with like 3 teeth would stumble into the bar, you know? You know the look, like the homeless hairdo, you know? And all the alkies in the bar be like, well, hello, sugar, where have you been all our lives, you know? And then you realize where she's been all your life, in a traveling carnival, you know, and... So I get a job in this crazy bar, and I'm like, you know, I fit right. I mean, there was like, we had a shuttle service to the detox. I mean, I just fit in like a glove. I digress. I've experienced every form of drinking. I was a weekend drinker, daily drinker, morning drinking, binge drinking. But I'll tell you the drinking that done this alcoholic in. I became a periodic alcoholic. And you know the equation. The drunks got longer and the period between them got shorter. And I started to do things that it talks about in the literature. I'm taking oaths, I'm making proclamations, I'm swearing on your life, I'm swearing on my life. I'll stop for Lent and I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll get back in shape and blah, blah. We just heard there in chapter 3, but I drink again and I drink again. And it's one more drink followed by one more failure, not drinking, followed by one more drink, followed by one more failure. They talk about the alcoholic being the bewildered one. Nobody's any more confused than me. Dr. Bob said he felt weak as a person because he failed so miserably at something he wanted to do so well, which was not drink. Boy, can I identify with that. I used to sit there and these drunks were getting worse and worse and worse. And I would think about it. I said, why am I drinking like this? And this is the best I could come up with. Lack of morals, I'm no good. Lack of willpower. If I had more willpower, I could have half a dozen drinks and go home. Lack of discipline. I was always a rebel buck in the system. And then my ace in the hole was punishment from him. He's had in for me from day one. I got the Alcoholics Anonymous and I found out none of those things are true. I drink alcoholically because for a long period of my life, alcohol was a suitable treatment for the disease called alcoholism. It worked. It worked pretty good. But the sad part is it stops working. And I end up in that place that talks about in AA, the jumping off place. I can't live with drink and I can't live without drink. I took a drink at 14 or 15. I built no character whatsoever. When the guy next door didn't get on the football team and was able to deal with that and sit on the bench, I drank. To hell with the football team. When the guy up the street got dropped by his girlfriend and went through the growing process of that and got another girlfriend, I said, to hell with her, I took a drink. When somebody went through the loss of a relative and went through the grieving process, I just drank. I drank everything away. So now I'm 30 years of age. I've got zero coping skills for living life on life's terms out there. And booze has, I'm here because, I tell you, I'm here because booze failed me. I invested everything in drink, body, mind, and soul, and come up short. I'm here because there's nowhere else to go. This is the last thing I tried and the first thing that ever worked. This is the last house in the block, and I'm glad I found it. So I drink again, and I drink again. And I'll give you a little vignette. I was in a bar one time drinking. This time I'm drinking for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks round the clock. Barroom drinking is mostly a memory. I went to alcoholic convulsions in a bar. I wake up in a hospital. I'm in a restraining sheet, strapped to a bed. And they finally give me Librium or whatever to get me down off the ceiling. And I come out of that hospital and I said, I don't know why I can't drink, but it's obvious I can't drink. And I will never, ever drink again. And if you'd have got a contract, I would have signed it in blood. I said, that's it. I don't know why I can't drink, but I'm done. But here's what happens to me when I try to stop drinking without a fellowship and a program and a higher power that allows me to live out there under God's will rather than my terms and conditions. A week goes by. I don't know why, but I get a stone in my shoe. I don't know where it comes from, but it's there. 2 weeks go by, I got a knot in my stomach all the time. 3 weeks go by, it feels like the top button of my shirt's tight all the time. A month goes by, it feels like everybody out there is on my case. Even if they're not, put an X in the calendar, I'm drinking again, because I can't live like that. And nobody was any more confused than me when I drank. And that's alcoholism. You know, they say you want to see an alcoholic, somebody dancing in the bar. Forget that. Look at an alcoholic with no drink and no program. That's real, untreated, chronic alcoholism, and that's me.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
Susan, I'll tell you, I punched a hole in the wall in my apartment without drink. I never punched a hole in the wall when I was drinking, but I punched a hole in the wall when I wasn't drinking. Because see, here's what happens to me as an alcoholic. All this stuff comes up, and I got nothing to push it down. What normally happens was that stuff comes up, I open a bottle of Bushmills, and it goes right back down again. It comes back up again, another bottle. Now I'm trying not to drink, and all this stuff's coming up, and I got nowhere to go with it. What I really need is 12 steps and 12 traditions and a fellowship and a program that allows me to go from a place of powerlessness and unmanageability to a place in the 12th step, not where I'm powerful, but where I have access to power on a daily basis. I'm going toe-to-toe with this disease. Up until this moment in time, I have never beaten an obsession to drink, and I've got into the ring many times. I heard Father Martin say one night, a 5-year-old child could say, don't get in the ring. But don't get in the ring means don't take a drink. And I don't know how not to take the first drink. So what do? I get back in the ring again. I'll stay off the ropes. I'll bob. I'll weave. I'll do it different this time. The result's always the same. I'm flat on my back, looking up at the lights, wondering, how did this happen again? I've got no solutions for life. I'm like the man who hits himself on the head with a hammer because there's a headache. The dots don't connect. Whatever good time I'm drinking to make better, or whatever bad time I'm drinking to get away from, it doesn't make sense because I've no program. If you're new here tonight, get something between you and the first drink. And let me just say this here. If you're new here tonight, I believe here's how you get something between you and the first drink. We have a symbol or an emblem. It's a triangle, and there's 3 parts to that. One part is unity. This is the unity. Many meetings make it easy. Few make it hard. None make it impossible. The first word of the steps is we, and the first word of traditions is our. I, self, and me. I drink. We do together what I can't do alone. So if you're here tonight, guess what? You're working one part of the triangle. Service, if you put away one chair besides the one you sat on, you're doing service in Alcoholics Anonymous. Congratulations. I had to learn to function for the well-being of another person besides myself in AA. These were small steps, but symbolic ones against chipping that wall that I had built between me and you. And recovery. Maybe the steps all seem very foreign. We have slogans. Easy does it. Live and let live. One day at a time. The slogans could be the banisters to the steps. Now, if you're doing all 3 parts to the triangle, congratulations. You're a participating member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I can stay dry on 2 parts of the triangle. I might even stay dry on 1 part of the triangle, but I can only stay sober on all 3 parts to the triangle. But I don't know this here. I'm going against me against a drink. And I'm here as a result of an old-fashioned 12-step call. Susan, who's my wife, was at work. We weren't married then. And she just broke down at work. And this woman says, "Why is that woman crying?" She says, "You got this on-again, off-again boyfriend. He's a bad drinker. Nobody's seen him for a couple of weeks. They might have to break the door down." And the woman said, "You know, my father's got a friend who's in this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. You want me to get his number?" And a note was placed under my door. I'm sitting in the apartment drinking round the clock against my own will, knowing loneliness that only an alcoholic can know. Life with drink terrified me. Life without drink terrified me. I lived on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean. I'm thinking of my parents 3,000 miles away in Ireland. I'm thinking I'll never see them again. If you ask me why I started drinking, I can't tell you. I've no idea. And this note said what I've been hearing since I was 15. "You're a nice guy, Paul, but you drink too much. Call this man." And I picked up the phone. I called a complete stranger. And I was in bad shape, believe me. And this guy been in AA since 1961. He knew Bill Wilson personally. And he wasn't off in some ivory tower reminiscing how AA is not the way it used to be. He was still in the trenches doing the work. And what that man literally did was he parachuted behind enemy lines, right onto the battlefield, and says, "Paul, the war might be going on, but your war's over. Follow me." And he led me off the battlefield and he brought me to Alcoholics Anonymous, where I was able to acquire peace with honor because of AA. Never underestimate the power of one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. You know, they talk about the therapist looks for the causes, the psychiatrist looks for the effects, the doctor treats the physical symptoms. The clergyman looks for the lack of religious conviction, and the alcoholic dies drunk because nobody can get him sober, only another alcoholic. That's our job. That's the mission we have been given, and I'm glad to be part of it. And that man told me, and he brought me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I made my next biggest mistake. I sat in Alcoholics Anonymous. He was a snowbird. He went back down to Florida, and he introduced me to the right people. He told me what to do and had me connected. But still here, I had this lingering doubt. I myself, I says, I thought I had a drinking problem rather than alcoholism. I still wasn't convinced that I was bodily and mentally different from my fellows, that it was physical and mental and spiritual and wrapped up in a body full of sick, immature emotions. I couldn't buy that at that stage. I figured I'll just put the plug in the jug and I'll live happily ever after, and these people are going to help me. And I'm in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm telling you, I've been to the jumping off place twice. Once with booze and once without booze. It's a different type of pain, but it's the same it's pain nonetheless. And I found out you can fool them at 8 o'clock at night at the meeting, but you're not fooling anybody at 3 o'clock in the morning with the could-haves and the should-haves and the would-haves, and all that stuff's coming up, and I got nothing to push it down with. Booze has failed me. I can't go back to Bushmills. I ain't going to work, and I know it. And I'm backing myself into a corner in Alcoholics Anonymous. Never back yourself into a corner in AA, believe me. And there's two ways you can work this program. You can work it under the guidance of your sponsor, or you can wait till the dogs are here. I waited till the dogs were there. And I'm here because I'm on. And you get food. I walked around AA and I thought I was doing the deal. I went about 400 meetings, probably 500 meetings in 2.5 years. You know? Service, I said, I'm making more coffee than Maxwell House. But I couldn't accept the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I could accept the first half of the first step, but I couldn't accept the rest. See, I'm Irish, stoic, stuff everything, don't tell nobody nothing, have another drink and it'll be all right. That was my code of conduct. And I'm in here and the steps, it just all seemed very, very touchy-feely, very warm and fuzzy, you know. I said, I'll do these steps, the next thing I'll be wearing flip-flops in the winter time, you know. Have like wind chimes hanging up around the house. Join an Oprah's book club, you know. But when you're out of options, you're out of options. And I was out of options in AA. And I'm here because a guy came up to me and he says, Paul, you're dying. And the sad news is you're dying in AA. And even sadder news, the help's right in the wall. I was just like this dinner tonight. I was like a starving man at a spiritual banquet. All this food was an offer, and I'm over in the corner in bread and water telling you everything's all right, but it wasn't all right. And I'm thousands upon thousands of dollars in debt. I came into AA, I didn't know much money. Within 2.5 years, I'd maxed out all my cards, and I know why today. I was still trying to fill the hole in my soul. There's not enough stuff out there to fill the hole in my soul. Take a trip to the Caribbean, feel good for 4 or 5 days. But I end up back at the same equation, me on me. And I can't get me off of me. And I'm on me 24/7 like a broken record. And this guy says, Paul, we don't do the steps because they're nice. We do them because they're necessary for recovery. If you want to get physically and mentally and spiritually and emotionally rehabilitated, you must work this program. There's no other way. Am I an arm's length away from a drink? Yeah. But I'm 12 steps away from a drink. I just can't walk out here and get drunk because I'm in ALA. Or I can backtrack through those steps again, don't get me wrong. Take my will back in 3, become insane in 2. So insane that I tell myself, I'm not an alcoholic or I don't cure, and get drunk in the first step. That's true. I seen people drink in AA I thought would never drink again. I'm not taking their inventory, but I realize you take your eye off this ball, the only way that I coast in AA is downhill. I must get my card punched on a daily basis. I get a daily reprieve based on my spiritual condition. I must show up and participate in my own miracle. And as I said, I was out of options. I started to do the steps. 2.5 years into AA. I was crazier off drink than I was on it. And I put this stuff down on paper. See, I was walking around AA with 2 hefty bags full of garbage. And I'm defending it, and I'm justifying it, and I'm rationalizing it, but you don't know. When I was 11 years of age, the opposing paramilitaries came in the middle of the night and burnt us out of our house. And they put a gun to my father's head in the front yard, and I thought they were going to shoot him. And I was drinking over that for years later. I was a young kid, I couldn't do nothing. I wish they'd come to the door now, it'd be a different story. I'm playing this over and over and over. And these resentments have no IQ. They don't realize this stuff happened 25 years ago. I'm living it like it's happening right now. The guy says, Paul, you got to get free. You got to get free from the one guy you could never get free from, which is you. You got to start to live in the one place you never lived, which is right here and right now. Some guys wrote a book called Drop, whatever you want to call it, whatever metaphor. Drop the rock, get rid of the garbage, get free. I got to wear life like a loose garment. And if I go out there and I tell somebody my sad life, they'll say, oh, that's terrible. Oh, I can understand why you feel that way. But in AA it says, Paul, it doesn't matter. You got to forgive. Step 4 comes before step 9. I have to forgive you before I go and knock on your door and ask you to forgive me. That's a spiritual law of the universe. I didn't make it, but that's the way they are, and I have to live by them if I want to be free. And I put this stuff down on paper. And I told another man stuff that I thought I'd take to my grave with me. And I didn't feel any cathartic, experience, but I started to sleep a little bit better. And I tell you what doing the steps did for me. They brought me to a point in sobriety when somebody else came to me and says, Paul, can you take me through the steps? I was able to do that. And that's when my life took on new meaning. That's when great events came to pass in my life, when I brought another man through the steps. Because when you talk about you, I find out about me. And I've got a life beyond my wildest dreams today. That was a number of years ago, and I came in here. I'm so glad they didn't have a clipboard the first night I showed up in an AA meeting. I would have checked the box for not drinking, and I would have shortchanged myself of so much. Because of Alcoholics Anonymous, I got me back, I got you back, and I got him back, and I lost a whole lot. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I was 30 years of age. I was still working in that crazy bar. I bartended the last 5 years drinking and the first 12 years in sobriety. I bartended my way through school. I was 32 years of age in AA, 2.5 years sober. I didn't even have a high school diploma. And all the shame and disgrace and self-loathing that goes with that. And my sponsor says, Paul, why don't you go back to school? Or in your case, why don't you go to school for the first time, I said, right away, the alcoholic, I can't do that. He said, what do you mean you can't do it? How do we do things around here, Paul? It's a cinch by the inch and it's hard by the yard, and we do it one day at a time. What if I fail a class? You'll take it again, and you'll take it again. And he was standing next to me when I got my first degree. And I got a second degree and 2 graduate degrees, all because of the principles I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. Take on long-term goals, whether it be sobriety, good mental health, a spiritual living, and chip away at them one day at a time. I learned in AA to face and tolerate and endure, to bear discomfort in order to gain comfort. That's why I love drink. I took one drink and it immediately changed me. Alcoholics Anonymous tells you to go for the long haul, not the quick fix. And I got a life today. You can't get where I am today from where I came from without Alcoholics Anonymous. You just can't. It's an impossible journey. But I see it here all the time. I get a front row seat for the very best humanity has to offer. And I have to see it in you, because sometimes I'm so locked into my own life, I miss the miracle. But if I'm sponsoring you and I see you coming to the meeting in a $300 car, and all of a sudden now you're doing the steps and the lights are coming on in your eyes, I say, well, if it's working in your life, it must be working in my life. And I have a life today beyond my wildest dreams. I have Susan here with me, and we've got our young daughter. Don't get me wrong, booze took a lot from me. I was 40 before I got married for the first time. And then I was 43, and Susan said, I'm pregnant. Right away, I said, I can't do it. I'm saying to my sponsor, I can't do this. He said, what do you mean you can't do this? See, being a father and being a husband means being dependable, accountable, and responsible, being there unconditionally. These things were all foreign to my nature as an alcoholic. And I carried that thinking into AA. Oh, I couldn't do it. He says, Paul, one day at a time you can do this. And that's what I did. And that little girl is one of the greatest joys of our life today. And don't get me wrong, I thought I was Mr. Altruistic. But I was leaving the house in the morning with the gym bag in one hand and the meeting list in the other hand. Next thing I'm leaving the house with a diaper bag in one hand and a child in the other hand. Believe me, I learned a lot about myself. But these miracles that I've found in AA, to show up, to be there unconditionally for another person. And things have happened. I thought I'd come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd walk between the raindrops. The same things that happen to people out there happen to people in here. I thought I'd get immunity from life. I said, no, you get the ability to deal with life on life's terms one day at a time. See, I couldn't do life on life's terms. I thought courage was rolling about the barroom floor with some guy you had a problem with. That just takes you to go crazy for a couple of minutes. I learned real courage in here. Before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was a devout coward. When life knocked on the door, I got a bottle of booze and climbed out the back window. Oh, I dressed it up. I'm a rebel. I'm a free spirit. You can't put a label on me. I couldn't do life on life's terms. Because of Alcoholics Anonymous and the principles in AA, I can show up for life no matter what, the good, the bad, the indifferent, and deal with it one day at a time. I'll just end on a story. I was 15 years sober, and so I know you all. I've seen you eating the fruit salads, and you're saying to yourself, I'm ready for some chicken, some fish, this Irish, and I know the dinner's at 7:30, but I was 15 years sober, and Susan and I were buying a house. I tell you this here because just as we are as alcoholics, and it was the last night in the apartment. I was there by myself, and it was at her mother's house. We were going to move into the new house the next day, and I'm lying there, 2:30 in the morning. I had a heart attack. I'm lying on a blow-up. Let me tell you something. If you're going to have I'm lying on a blow-up mattress in an apartment that has no furniture. And if you're going to have a heart attack, do me a favor, don't have it on a blow-up mattress. I'm lying there by myself. I'm like a fish, like a boated fish. I'm rolling about on this blow-up mattress, trying to get out of it. And I said to myself, I can't believe I'm going to die here in this apartment. See, I had all this vision that I'd die. There'd be like a lone bagpiper off in the distance, you know. I'd be in my wife's arms, and just like the last scene in Hamlet, I'd be like, tell my story, you know, as and here I am flopping about, and I finally get out of it, and I crawl down, I call Susan, and the ambulance came, and they bring me to the local hospital. Says, no, bring him to the heart hospital in the North Shore of Long Island Jewish, LIJ, and they brought me there because they have a 24-hour team on standby. I get there, and I knew, you know, when you get to the hospital, and there's people there waiting for you, and they go, what happened? I said, you know, this, and okay, and is your wife with you? I said, yeah, my wife's right there. And they said, we see that you got a crucifix around your neck. Are you a Catholic? I'm like, well, is it better if I'm Jewish, you know? I mean, let me keep all, typical alcoholic, let me keep all my options open, you know? And I flatlined on the table, the whole after-death experience, and they got me back to life, and I had some problems since I was a kid that I didn't know about, and put some hardware in. Here's the point I'm trying to make. I come out of the hospital, and I said to Susan, I'm going to be so different today. I'm not going to sweat the small stuff at all. I'm going to be, I was dead on that table. I had the whole after-death experience. I'm going to look at life, really, this is it now. I'm not going to traffic, nothing's going to get me. And that was okay for about a week. It just shows you how we are as alcoholics. For about a week, I was like the Dalai Lama of Long Island, you know. Somebody had cut me off. I go, peace be with you, my brother. I'm in no hurry. I'm in eternity. And you miss a few meetings, you don't talk to your sponsor, and self-will returns. That's what tells me I got to come here. I got to keep filling the tanks. I didn't get drunk on yesterday's booze. I can't stay sober on yesterday's sobriety. And I want to just tell you what happens here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was about 3 months sober, and I got bad news, and I wanted to drink so bad. And I was just flooded with the obsession to drink. And my hands were shaking because every time it felt like that, I had drank. And I called my sponsor. I heard this voice saying, call your sponsor, call your... I pick up the phone, no answer. I call another guy, no answer. Hey, let's go to a meeting, go to a meeting. I get in the car and I drive up to this place. It's an old army base right in the Atlantic Ocean, a place called Fort Tilden in New York, and we have meetings there. Old army base from the Second World War. And the place is in darkness. And it was a real stormy night. And I'm saying to myself, I'm only new in AA, I'm saying, maybe they don't meet when the weather's inclement. I don't know. You know, there was like 2 cars in the car park. And what had actually happened was there'd been a power outage, and everybody had left. But I walked up to the door, and I gingerly opened the door, and there was 6 people sitting around a candle. And the guy could see me in the half light. He says, Paul, how are you? And for the first time in my life, I really got honest. I said, I want to drink so bad, it's not even funny. He said, sit down, talk about it. And I talked about it, and I felt the obsession go down a little bit. And we went to the diner, and they talked about how they had dealt with it. And then we went to the diner after the meeting, and they talked a little bit more about it, and the obsession went down. And one of the guys says, Paul, you want me to stay in your house tonight? I says, no, I think I'm going to be all right. And I went home and I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning and the obsession to drink was gone. And I said to myself, these guys are right. No matter what, I don't have to drink. This was the first time the obsession to drink had come on me. I'd stood my ground, practiced the principles of the program, and not took a drink. And I was talking to my sponsor, and he says, Paul, it doesn't matter if the lights are on or the lights are off. When we sit down here and we read that preamble, there's always power in the room. There's always power in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. When two or more get together, there's something special happens between the preamble and the Our Father. And I'm so glad that I found it. And I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for inviting me out here to the West Coast and letting me play a small part in this wonderful roundup. Thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.